Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of what will be 5 videos taking you through all of the key information for Year 12 Business Management. For the first one, Area Study 1, Business Foundations, I'm going to take you through all the key knowledge, but also apply some of that key knowledge to some exam-style questions, which we have stolen from various locations, probably at Rollo. So straight up, we've got our different key knowledge. This is really important. Obviously, this is what you need to know. This is from the study design. If you do not have a copy of the study design on your laptop, if you don't have it printed out on your wall, if you haven't laminated it and stuck it in your shower, what are you even doing with your life? Go and do that and make sure you look at it because you need to know this stuff. It tells you not only what you need to know, but specifically what elements of those things can come up in exam questions. So we're going to go through our types of businesses. There are 6 types. Our business objectives, so what businesses want to achieve, stakeholders, what they want, what their vested interests are, how they can have conflicts. So we've got the characteristics and then potential conflicts. Management styles, we're going to look at from most power from the manager down to the least power or least control. We're going to look at the appropriateness of those management styles in terms of the task, the time, the experience of the employees, and the manager preference. Our 6 management skills, the relationship between management styles and management skills, and then our corporate culture, both official and real. And seeing as we just finished Unit 4, Area Study 2, unless you're watching this in the future and you're a future cohort and this is not relevant to you, this should be fresh in your brain from the last area study. We also have some key skills. These key skills are really vague in business. It just means that you could be asked basically anything about anything, and you need to be ready for that. But why these key skills are important is they make up the task words that will come up in each area study. So we've got a few that appear here. So we've got a number already right here. We've got identify, discuss, explain, evaluate, compare, and distinguish. Hopefully, you are so confident right now that as I went through all of them, you know exactly what each of them means. But if you don't, let's talk about them. Firstly, identify requires you to state. You just need to put in a single word. It's identify the business type outlined in the case study, and it's one person running the business. You just need to throw down sole trader. You get a mark. Happy days, that is a good ratio. You get a 1.6 minutes per mark. You've just saved a lot of time that you can now put into the 10 marker. When we get a discuss question in business, we need 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses. What's really important though is that you don't just state them. You need to elaborate on how they are a strength or how they are a weakness. Explain requires you to identify, describe, and link. Also kind of apply in that linking aspect of it. So you need to state what the thing is, give an explanation or a description of what that thing is, some key characteristics of it, and then apply it to whatever the situation may be. Evaluate is just discuss wearing a hat, and that hat is a conclusion. Compare is a combination of similarities and differences. Most often you need at least 1 and 1 of each, and then a combination of at least 2 more. So you need 4 things in total. And then of those 4 things, needs to be at least 1 similarity and 1 difference. Potentially, you could do 1 and 3, 2 and 2, 3 and 1. That's up to you. Depends on how many similarities and differences there are. And then finally, our distinguish is to have a point of difference and the 2 definitions of the key components or definitions of whatever content you're looking at. So if we had to define between real and official corporate culture, we'd need to say the key difference between real and official corporate culture is whether they are written in official documents. Official corporate culture are the shared views, values, and beliefs of a business which are found in their official documentation, whereas real corporate culture are the shared values and beliefs which can be observed within the business. So now let's get into some specific content. Our first key knowledge dot point is our types of businesses. Our first type of business is a sole trader. This is a business which is owned and operated by one person. Makes sense? Sole, one. They've got unlimited liability. What that means is they are responsible for the debts of the business. If the business goes bankrupt, they are going to go into their own personal finances to then pay off those debts. We've got partnerships next. Between 1 and 20 people. I know partnerships we often look at being 2 people. It's between 1 and 20 people. That's a characteristic. If you need to describe it, that is a characteristic that is important. They also have unlimited liability, but the upside there is it's being spread amongst up to 20 people, so that debt can be spread out a little bit further. We've got private limited companies, which is where your company's getting a little bit bigger. They're up to 50 owners who will own a stake of that business, and they have limited liability. Therefore, if a private limited company fails, individuals who own that business are not responsible for the debts of the business. We've got public listed companies. This is where a business is now listed on the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange. So anyone can buy shares in that business, and they also have limited liability, meaning they are not responsible for the debts of the business. Then we have our fifth type is government business enterprise. This is where they are owned by the public via the government. They aim to make a profit, and they often provide services that the public needs. So they kind of satisfy a social need without being a social enterprise. It also makes it easier for them to gain funding because the government gives them that money via taxpayers. And then finally, we've got a social enterprise which aim to fulfill a social need. Although they do aim to make a profit, that profit gets reinvested towards that need to make sure that they're doing the most they can to benefit society. So if we look at a few situations to try and apply these, which type of business and why? So if we've got the first one here, if Adam and Alison want to start a rock climbing gym, well, there are two owners there. That is likely to be a partnership. Grilled is a large business, but it's not listed on the stock exchange. Well, that's likely to be a private limited company because they're not listed on the stock exchange, but there's probably up to 50 owners. BHP Billiton is a massive mining company. Well, that's going to be public because they are going to be on the stock exchange because they are huge and they mine for oil and destroy the environment, but that's a different issue. NBN Co is a government business enterprise because the government owns them. Jess wants to start a graphic design business as a side hustle. Good for Jess, but she is a sole trader. And if she does not do well at her business, she'll probably trade in her soul and go very, very bankrupt. And then finally, we've got Paul, who started a business which aims to raise money to provide shelter for the homeless. Well, that seems to be a social enterprise. And good for Paul. What a nice guy. Then with our business types, we've got advantages and disadvantages. So when we are looking at some information, we might be required to say what type of business they should go into or to evaluate or discuss the business structure that they have chosen. So with a sole trader, some of our advantages are you've got full control over decisions and the owner gets to keep all of the profits. The downsides, though, you've got unlimited liability, like we said earlier, and you might have limited knowledge and skills. So you might be really good at carpentry, but know nothing about business tax. And that's going to be a worry for you. With our partnerships, we've got a greater range of expertise. Your partner might now know about business tax and they can sort out the finances of the business. And you can share that workload to look at each other's skills. Then the downside being, although your partner may know about business tax and they might know about the finances, now they're not letting you buy shiny new tools. And that may lead to conflicts. You also have unlimited liability still. So the two of you still have to share all of that debt. With a private limited company, we've got limited liability, which is great. So our debts aren't responsible. We're not responsible for our debts. We've got greater access to capital because we've got up to 50 people to draw that funding from. The downside, it's complex to establish. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of red tape that we need to go through to get that up and going. And there's increased government regulations that we need to meet to be able to be sustainable as a business. For a public listed company, shareholders have limited liability. If you own a portion of that business, you're not responsible for their debts. And you've got access to a wide range of expertise. You're going to have probably a board for the business with various extremely skilled people on that board who know things about businesses. The downside, it's really expensive to set up and operate, and conflicts can arise with so many competing opinions about what the business should do. You'll often find where sometimes when businesses get listed on the stock exchange, a recent example of this is actually GYG. GYG went public, and once they went public, there's been a lot of comments about the fact that the quality has gone down. Part of the reason for that is now it is really driven to create profits for the owners, that return on investment, which then means they've got to start looking at ways to cut costs. With government business enterprises, they can rely on the government funding, which is great, and they meet community needs. So things like public schools would be an example, or Australia Post, etc. We need post. Couriers are really expensive. Downside, government red tape, and the government may interfere with the direction of the business. So we may have a change in politics, a different government may take power. They may change the way that business operates. Then with our social enterprise, they develop a positive reputation because they are doing things to benefit the community. And this contributes to society's needs. That's great. The downside, it can be difficult to balance social and financial objectives, and it may be difficult to finance because banks may not want to give a business money if they're not aiming to make a profit and return on that investment. So if we look at a case around this, so Bookworm is a bookshop located in Albert Park. They're a sole trader, operated by Joe. What we need to do here is to outline one advantage and one disadvantage of a sole trader. So if we need to do that, we need to be able to state the advantage and then go into a little bit more detail about it. So One advantage of a sole trader is that it can make all the decisions and retain all its business profits. However, one disadvantage is that it's not an incorporated business type, meaning Joe has unlimited liability. Therefore, the owner's personal assets could be seized to pay off debts if the business fails. This lines up with what I was saying before with discuss questions. You can't just state the advantage and disadvantage. You've got to then elaborate on that detail. Next up, we've got our second key knowledge dot point, which is our business objectives. So what are they? We've got 7. Hopefully you can think of some. Pause it now. Try and think of some. Go on, I dare you. Do it. All right, so first up, we've got to make a profit, followed by to increase market share, to fulfill a market need, to fulfill a social need, to increase efficiency, to increase effectiveness, and finally, to meet shareholder expectations. Now, what do all these things mean? Well, to make a profit, we're trying to have revenues minus expenses and have that be increasing. To increase market share, we want a greater proportion of sales in a market. To fill a market need, we are finding a gap in the market and we are satisfying that. To fill a social need, what does society need? What's currently missing? Let's try and satisfy that. To improve efficiency, we're trying to get a greater output from the amount of inputs that we're putting in. To improve effectiveness is to try and improve on how we achieve business objectives. And to meet shareholder expectations is to basically increase return on investment. So if we apply those to a situation, Travel Time is a travel agent located in the CBD that specializes in Australian travel. Since the demand for travel has rapidly increased in 2022, they've employed 5 new employees to work in their office. The manager, Timothy, is concerned that the business is still not meeting customer demand and wants to gain insight from employees about how they can improve customer service to meet this demand. So we've got apart from to improve efficiency. So this is something that can come in questions. Be aware, sometimes they will eliminate some options and you have to choose from others. Explain one business objective relevant to travel time. So we could have one business objective is to fill a market need, which is when a business fills a gap in the market. Really clear description there. Involves addressing customer needs which are currently unmet or underrepresented. That whole second part, not really needed for that mark. That first statement really covers that nicely. As there's been an increase in demand for travel since 2022, Travel Time has hired 5 more employees to work in their office, and by employing more people, they're more able to provide advice to that increase in prospective travelers and therefore meet that market need. Next, we've got stakeholders. So let's find out which stakeholder is each of the following. A stakeholder is someone who has a vested interest in the business, and we've got 6 different ones that are listed here. So someone who wants to be paid fairly and have safe working conditions, that is an employee. So that is really important to know. They want to be paid fairly and have safe working conditions. Next up, someone who wants to have a say in decision making and achieve business objectives, that's going to be a manager. Someone who wants a return on investment, that's going to be an owner or a shareholder. Someone who wants high quality products at a fair price is a customer. Someone who wants to be paid on time and maintain a good relationship with the business. Now, don't be confused here that sounds a little bit like employees because that is a supplier. Then, wants the business to behave ethically and have a positive impact, that is going to be our general community because they want the business to not have a negative impact on the local area. What's really important with stakeholders, we've got all these different stakeholders, and what we need to know and be able to talk about is the potential conflicts between them. So the interests of stakeholders will often be directly in conflict with each other. For example, employees, like we said before, want fair pay and good working conditions. For a business to achieve this, they might need to increase prices. That's going to cause conflict with customers because customers want high quality goods at fair prices. So that's a direct conflict. There could be an infinite amount of different conflicts. It's going to depend on the situation. I almost always recommend, unless you've been told you cannot, go with employees and customers because it's a clear mix, or owners and customers because owners want to return on their investment. One of the easiest ways to do that is to increase prices, or owners want to return on their investment. Therefore, the business may cost cut. This will conflict with employees as they may lose their job and therefore no longer have fair pay and good working conditions. So if we do a bit of a check around this. In 2020, Adelina was employed as the manager of a deli with 60 employees. In 2022, the business has set the following objectives: decrease food waste by 20%, increase profits by 7%. She's adopted a persuasive management style. It's not really relevant to this question, but we need to outline the interests of two relevant stakeholders of the deli and explain how these interests may be in conflict. So like I said before, we've got these profits increasing by 7%. As soon as we have that, I'd be thinking owners. So owners want a return on investment. That's their vested interest. Straight away, we can have that. Then she wants to decrease food waste by 20% to improve efficiency. That would make me lean towards employees, and we could talk about the fact that the want for increasing return on investment for owners could conflict with employees who want good working conditions and fair pay. By making them do more work to improve that efficiency may actually make their working conditions worse, and therefore they're at conflict. Excellent. Now we've got management styles. So we've got to talk about the 5 management styles that we have, from most control to least control. So you should hopefully know all 5. They should be ingrained in your brain. You should close your eyes and see them in your sleep. But if you cannot remember them off the top of your head right now, we have an autocratic management style as the one with most control. Autocratic. Then we've got a persuasive management style with the slightly less control, where they sell it. Then we've got consultative, where they talk back and forth, but the manager still makes the decision. Then we've got participative, where they talk back and forth and then come to a decision together. And then we've got one that I can still never spell, which is the laissez-faire. Laissez. There's an I in there. E-Z-Z-F-A-I-R-R-E. Close enough. Where they give up all control to the employees who are experts in their area to then come up to a decision. So with these management styles, what's really important is to know when they are appropriate. So when they are appropriate is based on the time which a decision needs to be made, the employee experience, as well as things like the complexity of the task or the manager preference. So if you need to pick which management style would be best in the crisis, that is always going to be an autocratic manager, because they can make a decision quickly with full control, because it's one-way communication and centralized decision-making. Next up, if you have expert creative employees, that is going to be a laissez-faire, because you can give up full control to them. The manager doesn't have this expertise. Therefore, if it is potentially creative, like they are writing scripts for a television show, you want to give up control to them, because their creativity is going to lead to the best solution overall. If you want employees to feel heard and valued, you're probably going to go with participative or consultative, as the two-way communication will make employees feel like their ideas are being heard, and therefore they feel more supported and valued. And then if you want employees to understand the reason for your decision, well, we've got a management style where the manager sells the decision to employees, and that is persuasive, as then they understand the reasons for the decision and they might then be more on board with it overall. So from this, if we need to evaluate the suitability of the management style Adelina's adopted at the deli from the one we had before, and she has a persuasive management style, what we need to do is to talk about strengths of that, weaknesses of that, and how that actually applies to achieving business objectives. So when we look at that in more detail, one advantage of Adelina adopting a persuasive management style is that by explaining the reasons behind her decisions, she can gain the trust and support of her employees. So that's selling the idea to the employees. So this means that if Adelina emphasizes reducing food waste is important, employees may put in more effort, as the manager's clearly outlined why food waste needs to be reduced. So that links it to the business objectives to increasing efficiency. So that's really clear. That's a clear link in that situation. Another advantage is that it allows for quick decision-making, as Adelina does not need to consult employees when making business decisions. This can improve productivity, as no time is wasted, as employees can focus solely on their work tasks. Therefore, the deli's important work can increase, and therefore increasing their revenue through faster work, higher productivity, increasing that business objective of increasing profits. So again, making a really explicit link to the deli. However, we've got to get into our disadvantages now. One disadvantage is that employees may be unmotivated to complete work due to their inability to contribute to the decision-making processes, which could result in them leaving the business. This could increase costs as productivity is reduced, therefore inhibiting their ability to make or increase profits. Furthermore, another disadvantage is that the solutions and ideas for the deli are restricted to Adelina, meaning the employee insights are not gathered, limiting the possibilities for business changes that could improve efficiency and increase profits. Therefore, the business may not achieve the objectives. Do we need an overall point or final point? So we just need to weigh up or summarize our arguments. So overall, although the persuasive management style poses disadvantages relating to expenses for employees leaving and restricting ideas, it is a suitable style for the deli to achieve its objectives due to quick decision-making and increasing motivation amongst employees. I think a lot of students struggle with the conclusion. You're really just restating your points and choosing one side or another. This isn't quite like legal studies. You can't sit on the fence. You need to pick one way or another. Which way you decide does not matter, as long as you can back it up. All right, next we've got 6 management skills in our study design. What are they? I'm going to give you some time to think, but they are communicating, delegating, decision-making, leading or leadership, and interpersonal, as well as planning. So what do all of these mean? Well, communication is the transmission of a message from a sender to receiver with feedback. Delegating is the process where authority or responsibility is passed down from a manager to employee. So you are delegating tasks out to other people so that you have more time to complete your important work. Decision-making is choosing the best outcome or the best choice from a range of alternatives. So taking all the information you have available and making the best decision based on that. Leading is the ability to influence and motivate people towards the achievement of business objectives. Interpersonal is the ability to communicate with a range of people and develop positive relationships. And then planning is the ability to set objectives and detail the ways to achieve them. And that can be in the short, medium, or long term. What's important with these management styles and skills is that they go together, and different management skills get used differently with different management styles. So the 5 management styles all use skills somewhat differently. Most importantly is how communication and decision-making are used, and that will be different. So when we look at our autocratic and persuasive management styles, communication is one way and decision-making is centralized, meaning the manager makes all decisions. Whereas in participative, there is two-way communication and decentralized decision-making, meaning that there's communication back and forth, there's feedback, and the manager makes a decision with the employees. And that's really important. So if you get asked questions about how management skills will be used in specific management styles, you need to go into essentially what type of communication is used or how decision-making is used, who makes the decision. And that really clearly shows that understanding about how they relate. So if we were to look at these and apply some of these skills to a management style, so we've got this extract here about Novatech. They've gone through several challenges since 2022, and the share price has decreased by 10%. And the number of employees leaving has increased over the years. And so we've got described 2 management skills that managers at Novatech could use as they implement a persuasive management style. If we want to do that, one management skill that they could use is decision-making during a persuasive management style, which is the skill of selecting suitable action from a range of plausible options or alternatives. Managers, such as the new software developer, will need to make decisions that work towards improving performance at Novatech, specifically at sales and share price. As the managers will be making all decisions using the persuasive management style, this skill is particularly important. So just saying that because the managers are making the decision, it's a very important skill in a persuasive management style. Moreover, another skill that they could use is communication. So like I said before, these 2 skills are the most important in these questions about the relationship, which is the ability to effectively transfer information from one party to another. In a persuasive management style, managers at Novatech will use communication skills to inform its employees of the reasons behind the decision. That's the most important thing to say when talking about communication with a persuasive management style. It is one-way communication where you are selling the reasons for it. Effective communication could work towards reducing the number of employees who leave the company because they understand the reasons for the decision. Finally, our last key knowledge dot point is about corporate culture. So corporate culture refers to the shared values and beliefs of the business. You always need that shared values and beliefs in any definition about corporate culture. It can be real, which is what is observed within the business, or it could be official, which is what's written in the business's official documentation. So if we're talking about real corporate culture, this can be things like the overriding management style. It can be things like how the employees treat each other. It can be things like the overall layout. It can be rituals and celebrations. All of these things tell you they're observable about what the business really stands for. Whereas official, things like your mission statement, your policies, procedures, your dress code, all of those kind of things show you what a business says they stand for. That's not necessarily what they really stand for, but it's what they say they stand for. So if we talk about this and how it comes up in kind of questions around it, we wanted to have some factors that would indicate a company's official corporate culture. That's our mission statement, shared values, vision statement. All of those things really show your official corporate culture as well as your policies, procedures, dress code. Whereas our real corporate culture is going to be that, like we said before, overriding management style, the workplace layout, those rituals and celebrations, and even things like careful hiring can start to improve that real corporate culture. So if we looked at one final question around this, we've got Bookworm, a bookshop located in Albert Park. They're a sole trader owned and operated by Joe. And apart from Joe, there are 3 employees whose role is primarily to serve customers. Joe likes to employ people who are passionate about reading and can recommend books to customers. The Bookworm packaging includes a business slogan, "A book is a gift you can open again and again." So as soon as we see that, that is part of their official corporate culture. That is like a mission statement, a vision statement. It is what they stand for. It's what they're telling people they stand for. So we need to distinguish between official and real corporate culture. So our def difference, and use an example from Bookworm to demonstrate the official and real corporate culture. So there's 5 marks here. So it's 1 mark for define, 1 mark for define, 1 mark for difference, 1 mark for example, 1 mark for example. So let's look at how that is in reality. So official corporate culture involves the shared views and values that a business aims to achieve, often in written format. So that's the official corporate culture. On the other hand, real corporate culture involves the shared values and beliefs that develop organically and are practiced on a daily basis by employees. So once again, that's what is seen. Official corporate culture is institutionalized by formal documents and rules, whereas real corporate culture develops organically in the unwritten interactions between employees. So again, official corporate culture is what's written. Real corporate culture is what is observed or seen. The slogan, "A book is a gift," on the packaging of Bookworm could create an image to customers that it values the importance of books and reading, which is an example of official corporate culture. Joyce's choice to employ people who are passionate about reading and can recommend books indicates that Bookworm seeks to deliver authentic customer experiences and is an example of real corporate culture. So showing that careful or employing appropriate employees is that real corporate culture. It's what is observable, that they stand for. Having people who really love books can be seen by the customers and shows their real corporate culture. All right, and so to finish off, we're going to do some true and false. So I'm going to read through all these, give you an opportunity to think to yourself, and then I'll tell you the answer. So first up, a sole trader has limited liability. That is false. They have unlimited liability. They're responsible for the debts of the business. If a business increases sales, then they will have increased market share. That's also false, because it's about the proportion of sales in a market. Their competitors may have also increased sales, so you don't know for sure. But autocratic management style has one-way communication and centralized decision-making. That is true. The manager just tells the employees what they want, and then they make all the decisions themselves. The general community as a stakeholder may be interested in the environmental impact of a business. That is true also, because they care about the damage that a business can potentially do to their local environment. And finally, the skill of interpersonal skills could be impacted by a manager's body language when talking to an employee. That is true, because that's very much going to impact how they interact and the kind of picture and relationship they build with other employees. So that's been everything for Area Study 1. Hope this was helpful. We're going to have videos for Area Study 2, Area Study 3, and all of Unit 4, hopefully coming out over the next few weeks. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day.